día, mi gente. Yo soy en Puerto Rico. La temperatura está caliente. Lo siento, escúchame porque yo tengo un air condicionado corriendo. All right, everybody. Yep, in Puerto Rico. So if you can hear me, great. I do have the air conditioning running. I realize that is not very great climate of me, but I'm going to record this. I need something. Can't be sweating on the screen. All right, so we're talking about climate change, causes and impact. Here we go. 6.2, causes of climate change. So the primary cause is human activity, especially the emissions of greenhouse gases. So climate change has always been happening. It's just that the rate it's been happening has definitely been accentuated. And when you'll start looking in different possibilities, different variables, one of them is that we're producing a lot more greenhouse gases. That the climate is changing is non-negotiable. That we're producing more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, non-negotiable. The link between them, that's where some people do disagree. So there's still time to act, reduce emissions, and change behaviors. Hey, look, I grew up Catholic, and it's kind of one of those things of like shame, but like and you always feel like it's a losing battle, but like it's not. Okay, there's still always time to act. It's never too late to reduce emissions and change behaviors so that this world will be around as we know it for generations to come and be a better world. So, moral obligation to protect future generations from harm caused by environmental changes. Bring up a little personal in here. Me and my wife, we don't have any kids. So, we could be like some real jerks and be like, man, forget you guys. Yeah, you. All right. But I don't know. I just like deep down in me, I know I'm better than that. So like, I'm always looking to better leave the place better than I found it for you guys and for the generations to come after you. So, climate and weather. Weather is short-term local changes in temperature, wind, and precipitation. I cannot stress this enough. The difference between climate and weather. Weather, short-term. Gee, it's hot outside. Does that really mean like global warming? Not really. All right. That just means it's a hot day. It's the weather. Climate is long-term average patterns over 30 plus years. So, yeah, climate would be in Puerto Rico hurricane season. Guess what? Hurricane season happens. What the heck? Ad blocker, goodbye. All right. Hurricane season happens roughly in August all the way through November, with really, I think that sweet spot being September and October. By the way, don't go to Disney in that time. Disney always tries to sell you cheap tickets because you should be in school, and also because it's hurricane season, so they have a tough time getting people into the park. Don't fall for it. All right. Both influenced by atmosphere, oceanographic circulation, and clouds. Clouds are like a blanket. They trap or reflect the heat. So like, hey, look, sunlight comes in, boing, bounces off the cloud, goes away. Everything good, right? Well, also though too, when the clouds basically act like a blanket, so they'll trap the heat. On the days here in Puerto Rico or where we live in Connecticut in the River Valley, those days where it's graybird, it's where you just see it's just cloudy. It really helps trap in the moisture quite a bit, which the plants love, but it also makes it humid. So, all right, forest fires influence it. They can be natural or anthropogenic, which is man-made. Release herbs or reabsorb carbon dioxide. So, yep, forest fires, obviously you burn a tree, that carbon then goes off into the atmosphere. So, it also, too, any of the ash that's left over goes back into the soil, so you could say it's reabsorbed with that. Volcanoes release ash, cool the earth temporarily. So, what happens is this. Volcano explodes. Puts ash all over the place, okay, in the atmosphere. That ash will reflect the sunlight, make the earth a little bit cooler. That's one of the theories with dinosaurs, that basically like a meteor hit or a volcano explosion, you put all this ash in the atmosphere, sunlight didn't get through, plants didn't grow, dinosaurs came down with a bad case of dead. So Human activities. Fossil fuel and livestock contribute to um, greenhouse gases quite a bit in climate change atmosphere. And you're thinking, all right, humans with burning fossil fuels, yeah, but like, how does livestock? Well, a lot of it is because the feces from livestock, also from cow farts producing a lot of methane, stuff along that nature. Chickens probably less so, but definitely that's more looking at the beef or red meat industry. Uh, that'd be interesting to see the amount of methane that cows put out versus other red meat animals, like say goats. Just interesting. All right, climate change, long-term shift in Earth's climate. So, yep, it's due to solar insolation variations, Milankovitch cycles, changes in atmospheric gas proportions. For me, this one is huge right here, Milankovitch cycles. We went over them a little bit freshman year in my school when I used to teach freshmen. Um, but I'm not sure with the new SciEd um, education unit that they go over it much. But yeah, it's big. We'll get into it. Temperature and carbon dioxide levels. Climate tipping points may lead to irreversible changes. So what that means is like it almost sets like a new bar when you talk about tipping points. It's like that's the new normal. Think of it like you all experienced COVID. That's the new normal. The new normal. The new normal. All right? Everything there was like a tipping point that reset like what the expectation was. That's what a tipping point is. So carbon dioxide, and I cannot stress this enough, you have to know that CO2 is carbon dioxide. CO2 emissions have risen sharply since the Industrial Revolution, especially after 1950. So if you look, Industrial Revolution sort of happened, it's like a soft kind of start to it. Some historians say 1850. My dad, who's a history teacher, in the way he's just taught me, I'd say somewhere more like 1890s, but whatever. Basically, ever since 1850, the CO2 emissions have gone, because instead of people working on the farm, farming got better, so we don't need as many people working on the farm, and then you can send those laborers off to manufacturing jobs in the city to make things, and the result is it's just been going that way ever since the 1950s. Globally, temperature has increased around 0.85 degrees Celsius since 1880. Doesn't sound like quite a bit. Look at where they're looking, where it might go, though, and that will change your mind. So a little bit of a swing goes a long way. Oh, especially after 1950. So if you look after 1950, we started producing plastics quite a bit more. If you look at all your World War II movies and stuff, none of them have people really wearing plastics or anything plastic. And also, too, before 1950, we didn't have highways. Cars were just kind of like a local transportation. If you wanted to get anywhere, really you were taking a train or a boat. The airplane industry really wasn't taking off, no pun intended. So, all right, back down to this for a second. Strong correlation between carbon dioxide levels and global temperature. So there's quite a bit of a link with it. Just when you start looking about how carbon dioxide levels go up, wow, temperature has gone up. But there are some people that refute that. So ice core and sediment data confirms this link over 800,000 years. So along with the ice core data backs up the Milankovitch cycles as well. So TOK, the data that backs up climate change is extensive. To what extent does this make science the supreme form of knowledge? Heck yeah, I mean, I'm a science teacher. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm biased as all get out. Of course science is the ultimate form of knowledge. All right. But that is up to you. It's kind of like, yeah, I have a science brain. I look at data. I'm inquisitive. Actually, to be honest with you, my brain operates more on the engineering design principle than it does scientific one. But, like, to what extent does that make science the ultimate form of knowledge, or supreme form, as opposed to more emotional knowledge or other forms of knowledge? So, yep, Let's bring that on down right there for the moment. Climate change and the carbon cycle. Humans release massive amounts of carbon via fossil fuels, disrupting the natural slow carbon cycle. Yep. So when you look at carbon when it's off in the atmosphere, by the time it actually gets down to being a fossil fuel again, thousands of years, and we burn through it like that in an instant. So, yep. In 2009, 8.4 billion tons of carbon were released. Yeah. Whether you want to say it's through burning fossil fuels, burning trash, cow farts, whatever. Half remains in the atmosphere and the rest is absorbed by oceans and plants. Hopefully more by plants, because if it's absorbed by the ocean, it increases ocean acidification. Methane and nitrous oxide also contribute significantly and have high global warming potential, GWP. You have to know what GWP is, global warming potential. They'll use it quite a bit on exams, and they'll drop the term GWP. And if you don't know it, ay Dios mío, buena suerte. Climate change impacts. Global impacts, ocean circulation shifts, sea levels rise. So yeah, as the ocean starts warming, it starts having this like effect on the ocean circulation, just slowing it down with the currents and the trade winds and stuff. Sea levels also rise. Local impact, coral bleaching, basically coral just dying out. Desertification, where just things get drier. Reduced water and food supplies, which will cause people to move and migrate. Impacts are uneven globally, affecting vulnerable regions more. Yep. Poor people always get screwed. I mean, not politically correct saying it, but doesn't make it less true. So, alright, on oceans and sea levels. Sea levels have risen 196.7 millimeters since 1993 due to thermal expansion, just warming of water. It's going to expand more. Think about ice cubes. When you put water in a tray, does it stay level? No, it shrinks because it's cold. Alright, so when you heat water, it expands, especially when you got an earth that's about 70 to 80% water, something like that. You got a lot to expand upon. Alright, let's see. Land ice melting into the sea. Yeah, when you start looking at ice caps and glaciers melting, that will increase sea levels quite a bit. Predictions: sea levels could rise 15 to 95 centimeters, 6 to 37 inches by 2100. Yeah. So yeah, by the year 2100, sea levels could be up anywhere from half a foot to 3 feet. Acidification and warming affect marine life, especially corals and shellfish. And I do love me some oysters. Clams too, but especially oysters. My wife is more of a mussels kind of woman. So, yeah, but all that with acidification affects shellfish quite a bit. So, on polar ice caps. Melting glaciers and ice caps increase sea level and dilute ocean currents, potentially weakening the North Atlantic drift. So yeah, as the cold water starts melting, dilutes the ocean, they just become less salty. Alright, as a fact, it really slows down the currents that we have. Methane clathrate, frozen methane, could cause rapid warming if released. So yeah, think of it that way. It's not just carbon dioxide locked up in like the bogs and stuff in the tundra. It's also methane. Melting opens new trade routes and access to mineral fossil fuels. If you look at the United States, heck, just for fun, right here, let's do this. Our current president is Donald Trump in his second term, and Donald Trump, Greenland. Let's see what's been in the news lately, alright? Trump's Arctic ambitions extend beyond Greenland. He's also looking to buy icebreakers. Okay, cool. I'm not sure why to buy them or we should be making them. Make them in America. Trump moves Greenland military installation under U.S. Northern Command and Arctic power shift. Ooh, okay. French president touches down in Greenland in solidarity with territory eyed by Trump. Trump administration plans to move Greenland from U.S. European Command to Northern Command. Ooh, okay. Macron will visit Greenland this month, defying Trump. Denmark approves U.S. military bases on Danish soil as Trump eyes Greenland. All right. Looks like Macron, the French, and the United States are kind of battling it out for Greenland. All right. Ooh, and proposal for Putin to mediate Israel-Iran crisis. That would be interesting. All right. Anyway, back to this. All right, so we did this. All right, awesome. Got that covered. Let's bring that to right there. On glaciers. They grew during the Little Ice Age between 1550 and 1850. We did have a little mini ice age then. Actually, if you looked up London frost fairs like this, let's go for images. Yeah, it's basically where the river in London, the Thames, froze, and they ended up having like this circus on there where they'd put up tents, sell alcoholic beverages and graham crackers and a whole bunch of other stuff, and they'd have themselves a good old time out on the middle of the Thames River because they had a little mini ice age between 1550 and 1850 where it would freeze, and then they could have a good time, and on that frozen lake it just became like a frozen park to have a good time. All right. Loss of glaciers reduces water supply, increasing flooding and landslides. So, oh yeah, let's look up, while we're at it, let's look up Switzerland. Glacier collapse town. Yeah, let's look up. Blatten, that was it. Videos here. Alright, bam. Blatten. Boom. That's a glacier collapsing. They knew it was going to happen, so they evacuate all the people out of the town. Yeah, look at that thing go. Alright. Glaciers are way up top of the mountain. When they break and go down, 90% of the village have been covered or destroyed. Boom, that's all landslide. I've been on glaciers. Actually, I've been on glaciers in this area in Europe. The thing that it doesn't, they're so different. They're beautiful and they're odd. And they're kind of deadly too. Yeah, you can, yeah, right there. So, yeah, interesting enough, they, Switzerland sometimes doesn't attribute that directly to climate change. So, I like techno music, by the way. So if you see somebody with green hair up there, she's a techno artist. All right. Back to this, so for a second. So loss of glaciers reduce. So glaciers too, it's like when glaciers disappear, they leave behind this silty sort of stuff. And when it's really dry, the wind can blow it all over the place. And really it makes breathing pretty difficult. Thwaites Glacier, Antarctica, is a major risk due to rapid melting. So, yeah. On weather patterns, climate change causes more energy in the atmosphere. It's just more, there's a term for it. Entropy. Sorry, brain blank. More entropy. The more heat there is more entropy, more energy loss. Extreme weather, hurricanes, droughts, floods, all those increase with climate change. Climate change isn't just global warming. Global warming is part of climate change, but in there you also have more of these extreme weather events. So examples are Hurricane Ian 2022, and so Australian brush fires, or bushfires as they would call it, etc. Monsoons bring more rain. Cyclones are stronger and slower. So that's just some of the differences there. And also it's mostly in the name. So on food production, warmer climate may boost photosynthesis. So yeah, your plants have a longer growing season, but respiration also rises, which this causes an uncertain net primary productivity with it. Crop zones shift northward, winners and losers depending on soil fertility. So don't forget that. So yeah, warmer growing season. Um, Maybe we can grow more peaches in Connecticut now, where they used to be like prime time, like peaches used to grow in Georgia and South Carolina. Now it's like, hey, with the warmer weather, as long as our soil is good for it, you might have more peaches growing in Connecticut. Hey, you might have coconuts soon enough growing in North Carolina. I don't know. Hmm. But a lot of it with warmer weather. So, um, crop zones shift north. Pests may spread as cold winters no longer kill them. We see this quite a bit now in New England. With other reasons, I will say that. We used to burn the fields quite a bit more, which used to reduce the tick population, from what I've heard, but and burn leaf piles and stuff. But we don't do that anymore. And as a result, along with that, with the warmer winters, we have a lot more ticks than we ever had before. Heat waves and droughts threaten livestock and marine food chains, plankton. So, yeah, just droughts. People can tell me a little bit more when you live like out in Texas, so it's a spot that grows more beef cattle for eating. But how heat waves affect that, but I imagine they do a number. So, marine food chains, plankton, well, they don't like warmer water. So, and that is your baseline of the food chain. So, on dry land, desertification is the degradation of fertile land. So, you got a nice farm, nice dark soil, moist. Hey, we like that. You take too many nutrients out of there, not enough moisture in there. Guess what? Now it turns to dry, dusty dirt, and it can blow all over. Or when it does rain, it just washes the dirt away. So, it has quite a bit. In fact, dry land makes up 41% of the Earth's land surface, supporting 2 billion people. Yeah, 2 billion people being supported on land that's kind of on the brink. Examples are the Sahel, all right, Gobi Desert, East Africa, and South America drylands. They've tried different things here that have not worked out. Like they've brought in beef cattle to Africa because they thought that would be a really good idea to eat off the grasslands. Problem is, like, A, I don't think they did very well against the predators there, and B, beef cattle just used up all the resources on the land without giving really anything back, and so they overused the resources. In the Sahel, I think that some of the currency is actually in livestock. So like when you get married, you're given like a cow and 3 goats, and you measure a person's wealth by their livestock that they have. So that's just something I had heard. Don't know if it's true or not, but obviously the problem with that is that the more livestock you have, the more it eats up the grass. So, and then you have livestock but skinny and not healthy and prone to death. So, let's see. TOK, is there a moral responsibility that comes with knowing something? Yeah. Are you innocent because you just put your head in the ground and didn't act? Or is just because you know something doesn't mean you have to do something. You could actually apply that to not just the environment, but different situations. I think back to my school, I had some students that recently got into a car accident, and they were seniors and juniors and whatnot, and I kind of know that they were living kind of like a crazy lifestyle, and I just talked to them lightly, but I didn't really come down hard on them, dude, didn't force the issue. So that comes in with moral responsibility. Now I have to own that, decide what I want to do going forward. All right. On biodiversity and ecosystems. Permafrost thawing releases methane. Structures on it are destabilizing. So with permafrost melting, releases a lot of methane off into the air. And obviously methane is a greenhouse gas, and it adds to global warming and climate change. Animals can migrate. Plants do not. Plants move more slowly. Risk of local extinction. So, as the planet warms, it's moving faster than the plants can move. Loss of glaciers affects water availability and habitats. There's actually a lot of communities that rely on glacial water melt to survive. Corals are highly sensitive to warming. Bleaching can occur with a 1 degree Celsius rise. Also, there with ocean acidification, so the more carbon we have in the atmosphere, the more it gets washed out and into the ocean, and the oceans become more acidic, which helps out, which is a detriment to corals forming. Wildfires and diseases. Pine beetles increase with warming. So, yep. So, on human health, here we go, down here. Heat waves, example 2006 Europe, can cause deaths and are expected to increase. Europe isn't really situated either with, from what I've seen, like air conditioning. It just has a culture of not really believing in it, like not utilizing it. And so when there is a heat wave, it does have a pretty strong effect. It affects the cities, I'm going to say, a little bit more. As far as those death rates and death tolls, it affects the elderly a little bit more. Let's see, in Europe, like, it's the bit of the culture of just like, oh, okay, it's really hot in the middle of the day. So tell you what, how about we not go outside and do work in the middle of the day? We take a siesta. And that is passed down culturally, and it's rather intelligent and brilliant. There's also, too, the idea that, like, hey, during the summer, it's really hot. So go to the beach and cool off in water. So, yep. Insect-borne diseases, malaria, dengue, yellow fever, my favorite word here in Puerto Rico, chikungunya. That is another disease spread by mosquitoes. And that's just, you start to see the mosquito population. The warmer the winters are, the more mosquitoes there are. Also, too, those tropical diseases start going higher in latitudes. So, algae blooms, including toxic red tides. Ooh, you see red tide, don't eat the shellfish, you'll die. Are becoming more common with warming lakes and seas and can kill humans and animals. So, yeah, warming isn't always good. So, cooling, actually having a cold reset does quite a bit. On water supplies, evaporation increases, rivers and lakes may dry up. You've all seen in this one sea, is it the Aral Sea? Yeah. Give this guy a watch too. Simon Whistler. I really like his stuff. So yeah, you can just start looking at all these boats that used to be fishing boats. And I mean, like, look, bro, that used to be ocean. Or the sea. Now look what's left. Like, right? It's nothing. Nothing. Yep. Let's look at images here. That to me is probably one of the most powerful. That's what it used to be. That's what it is currently. Not much hope, you know. But, alright, back to this. 2.4 billion people depend on rivers from melting glaciers. Himalayas, these glaciers are retreating. Conflicts over water scarcity and unequal distribution are increasing. It's not just conflict like the Egypt, bam, let's see here, Egypt, Sudan, water conflict, bam. So the issue you have here, like if you go to news, let's see what they have here. Sounds good. Water dispute. The war over water. All right, let's look at maps here. So, actually, let's not. Let's go back. Let's go to images. So, issue that you have. Let's see if which one shows this best. So, you've got these dams here. Now, historically, the way it works out, this is a great geography question. They're like, which way does the Nile flow? And it flows south to north. So the way it works out is that, the rains come down, maybe even snow in, I don't know, in Ethiopia, Sudan, stuff like that. And then it just goes down the Nile like this and leaves via Egypt. Now, historically, the Nile has been the beating heart of Egypt. I mean, you could say the Suez Canal too now, but like really the Nile, it's what makes that land so fertile, it's what gives water, all this sort of stuff, right? And so Sudan's just like, in Ethiopia are like, yeah, no more, like we're just going to dam up the river. So we're going to keep all that water. So now it's just a trickle coming into Egypt. And you've got all these Egyptians that depend on that water. So you can imagine there's a bit of a fight for it. So also too, the Colorado River out west in the United States. So it's not just countries fighting over water. It's also farmers, housing development, states as well. So, yep. On human migration. Migration will rise if people can't access food or water locally. Hey, guess what? You need water to live, to survive. Without it, you've got two options, dying or moving. So, or fighting for it. UN predicts 150 million climate refugees by 2050. Wow, right? On national economies, climate shifts may open up new resource opportunities, Arctic shipping, mineral access, growing crops where you couldn't grow them before. But it also has some nations may benefit, hydroelectric potential. Others may suffer from disasters, droughts, and floods. So, yep. Just different things to worry about. So, let's see what we got here. On indigenous people. Indigenous pastoralists in the Sahel rely on traditional environmental knowledge. So, climate change disrupts the migration patterns, water access, and livestock management. So, look, every year that goes by, society as a whole, we put rules down, we put regulations, we put infrastructure that really gets in the way of traditionalist living. So, and I get it, those people have a right to live that way, but it becomes more difficult every year. We have people that live this way too in the United States, the Amish, a few other religious communities. So, on equity in societies. Climate change is also a social crisis. Poor nations and communities contribute the least but suffer the most to climate change. So, I could argue that a little bit though too, because I just went to the beach the other day in Puerto Rico, and look, in the United States, there's this, it's different depending on where you are, but in the Northeast, there's kind of like a culture of like, dude, really? Bro, you're gonna throw trash in the ocean? Don't you want to come back here and see it be beautiful? Idiot. You know, where here in Puerto Rico, there was quite a bit of trash at the beach. It was not really caused by foreign tourism. It was more local trash. All right. So, yeah. And those, so sometimes you don't respect what you have in your backyard. Inequality spans countries and generations. So, yeah, it's not just, you have different people, like young people, old people. Like, one of the issues you have is young people. You guys would be perfect for electric cars, but they're expensive, and your first car is not going to be an expensive car. Don't fall in love with it. Don't fall in love with it. It ain't going to be around long. So, examples of climate change increasing societal inequality. So, vulnerable groups, women, elderly, displaced people, minorities. These people all get screwed first. Climate change policies can unintentionally increase inequality. Energy prices rise. And I will say, even as middle class American, I'm a teacher, I earn an income. But look, my income goes like this. Fossil fuel prices go like this. So you can kind of see how my income is not really keeping up with the cost of energy prices. The electrical bills going up. Gas bills are only going to go one way. Things are only going to go one way. So what the whole trick is to look at ways you can save. Electric cars, do they run on dreams and unicorn tears? No, they run off of electricity, which we get from burning natural gas, which puts out a ton more methane, I believe, than gasoline. But overall, gasoline engines produce a lot more greenhouse gases than electric cars. So I try to insulate myself environmentally, but also to save money on electricity and fuels. It's build smart so that you use less of them as you go throughout your life. Collaboration with affected communities is essential to avoid marginalization. Fossil fuel crisis. In 2022, Russia, their war with Ukraine, disproportionately affected the poor. Why? Because of food, access to food, and also too just access to natural gas and stuff. So, you know, so, yep, all that sort of stuff. Gains and losses from climate change. High latitude countries may benefit agriculturally. Hey! Guess what, Canada? You get to start growing some more crops. Tropical countries, Africa, may lose productivity. Ooh, boo. All right, I'm in Puerto Rico right now. Agricultural opportunities with warmer climate in Puerto Rico. All right, looking tougher. All right. Especially for coffee growing. I'm going to go to a coffee plantation on Saturday. It's Thursday today. So I might ask them about that. Collaboration with affected communities is essential to avoid marginalization. So, fossil fuel crisis. Oh yeah, we talked about that. Sorry. Stern Report, 2006. All right. Mitigating climate change early would save up to 20% of the GDP. Yeah. Because it's like taking care of a small problem as opposed to taking care of a big problem. Hey, a lot of you right now work or are going to be working. If there's a problem, tell your boss about it immediately. Why? Because when you tell them immediately, it's a small problem. Now you let time go on, and now it's a big problem that they have less time to solve. That's when they're going to be like, you know, project costs of climate change. Oh yeah, we went over that. By 2050, 14 to 23 trillion. Mucho chavo. Modeling climate change. Climate models show different responses to forcing. Direct is increased greenhouse gases, warming. Boom. All right. That one's easy to see. Buffering is also the resistance to change. Like the ocean itself tends to be more of a buffering system, in that it absorbs quite a bit of the carbon that we put out there, but it also absorbs quite a bit of the heat and acidification. Tipping points are where it's like once you go past that, there ain't no going back. The way I look at tipping points, tipping points can be with relationships and also with climate and other things as well. Hey, tipping point. I'm going to trust you, and you're going to trust me, all right? But as soon as that trust is betrayed, that's a tipping point. Now you've lost my trust, or I've lost yours. And getting it back is no easy thing. So, nonlinear changes can make prediction difficult as well. TOK, is it possible for members of the public to judge whether or not to accept scientific findings when there are many possibilities? Do you trust science when, who knows? There's a lot of different things that could go with it. You know, it's the future. No one's got a crystal ball for the future. I do believe in that, but at the same point, too, I do also believe in human nature. We don't like to believe in bad news because it makes life more difficult for us. Humans, we're kind of by nature, I feel like, always trying to just better our lives, and that can be at the expense of other things. So I believe humans, like when you go see a doctor, there's tons of people that want to visit a doctor for good news. I have the theory that you don't pay a doctor to hear what you want to hear. You pay a doctor to hear what you need to hear. Scientist. You don't pay a scientist to hear what you want to hear. You pay a scientist to hear what you need to hear. But that's my soapbox. All right. Planetary boundary for climate change, visualized as a car being pushed uphill. Some scenarios show resistance, others lead to a cliff. Planetary boundaries already crossed for climate change. To stay safe, CO2 should remain below 350 parts per million. We're already above that. Yeah. So we got to lower that somehow. For me, I think a lot of it has to do with planting trees, just living a little bit more intelligently. I think it's not doing less, it's just doing it better, more smartly, more intelligently. So, perspectives on climate change. Public understanding varies. Many deny or downplay the threat. You've got climate change deniers. So, 81% worry about climate change, but only 61% in Norway believe it's human caused. Also, too, you have to look at Norway, and you know what Norway's major export is? Oil. So they're not really going to be like, oh yeah, climate change, but it's not really caused by, oil at all, So scientific consensus, 99.99% agree on human-driven climate change. Political and corporate inaction or denial delays change. TOK, to what extent is our perspective determined by belonging to a specific culture? So, culture has quite a bit to do with viewpoint on the world. Hey, look, Puerto Rico, it's part of the United States. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens. That being said, it's a totally different culture than the culture I was brought up with in the Northeast New England. There's a lot in Puerto Rican culture that I'm envious of. Just to make gross generalizations, but family nucleus is so tight, all right? There's a culture behind that. There's a culture of everybody goes out and celebrates. There's a culture around food. There's culture around music. Culture around cleaning. The inside of a house. My mother-in-law's house, you could literally eat off the floor on the inside. But I'm not saying that I'm a dirty pig, but I'm just not as clean as my mother-in-law. But two, there's a little bit of difference with the culture too when you visit a beach. Like, hey, look, there's less rules here when you visit the beach. In some ways, that's a good thing. If you were to bring a bottle of Coca-Cola or whatever else you want to drink off into the ocean and drink it while the waves hit with you, there's nothing that really says against that, all right? But like there is in New England, but where I'm from. But there's nothing really enforcing throwing that bottle in the trash either. For my money's worth, rules and laws work up to a certain point. Social, cultural norms work even higher. And I've got reasons for believing that, mostly from COVID. But it's more the idea of I watch here, my in-laws call them gringo dropout beaches or areas because Americans come down, they visit, and they're like, I'm not going back. Tell my family to sell everything. I'm staying. All right? And those beaches are probably the most beautiful without trash in the island because there's this culture that those beaches of you're not throwing that on the ground, right? I know me, huh? All right? And so they keep everything really clean. That's a culture of doing that. When you look in Japan, Japan has no custodians in their schools. The students and staff clean up after themselves and they clean the whole school. That's the culture. So yeah. All right, let's get down here. More on evidence for climate change. Direct evidence. Temperature, precipitation, wind speed, gases. Since the 1950s. They've basically increased right across the board for different things and just erratically. So indirect proxy evidence, tree rings, ice cores, sediment as well. So you can look at tree rings, they give you quite a bit of data. Ice rings and ice cores give you quite a bit more. These show long-term changes and validate climate models. So what do ice cores show? CO2 is stable at 280 parts per million for 10,000 years. Yep. We like it that way. 280 is the sweet spot. Yep. But it's been rising ever since the 1800s. And now we're up to 417 parts per million in 2023. By the time you're watching this video, who knows? We're probably up to 420. So, methane has more than doubled since pre-industrial times. More cow farts. Also other things too. Burning natural gas produces a lot of methane. Glacial data confirms colder periods had lower CO2 levels. Yep. There's your link. So the more CO2 you put out there, the more the temperature is going to go up. So, what do tree rings show? All right, let's go down here. Trees form larger, clearer rings in warm, wet years. So, yep, when there's nice, wet years that's warm, they got big, fat, clear rings. Yeah. All right. You can track temperature and precipitation over 1,000+ years in some trees. There's some trees here, they're kind of crazy in Puerto Rico. They've actually were around before Columbus was around. Yeah. Let me see if I can check up a Ceiba tree. No, it's probably not this one. Ceiba tree life cycle, I guess. Oh no, not that one. Ceiba tree life expectancy. Ah! Oh, sorry, my wife just walked in. Don't worry, I'm wearing pants. All right.
Oh my God.
Filming a video with my notes for my students. Okay, each phase plays a crucial role in the tree development, with lifespan of a ceiba tree often exceeding 100 years. All right, the ceiba trees only live up to, ceiba can grow 240 feet tall during its 500+ year life expectancy for ceiba trees. Ceiba por la Victoria. My wife tells me that does not translate, but I think it does. All right. Yep. So, pollen and fossil analysis. Pollen in lake sediments, ice shows past vegetation and climate. Fossils help identify and date what lived when for pollen. So that's how they can tell a long time ago there's only ferns that grew long before trees. More on climate models. Models simulate Earth systems and test predictions. Keep in mind, you know it's IB and they love asking you about what limitations of models are. Hindcasting, testing past data to check model accuracy. Models are not 100% accurate, but they predict within 0.9 degrees Celsius warming since the 1970s. So, TOK certainly about the past is more difficult to attain than certainty about the present or the future. Discuss this statement with reference to evidence for climate change. So yeah, hey look, it's a lot easier looking back and identifying like dead on accurately like what the past was, as opposed to the present or the future, what's going to happen. So that's one of the issues you have with models. Yeah, just because it happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future. But sounds like some people praying to me. Climate change scenarios. Models predict different future pathways based on action and inaction. This includes scenarios for temperature, sea level, precipitation, and population. Temperature change scenarios. Baseline. What happens if nothing changes? Or if it just stays the same, status quo. What happens with climate action pathway? All right. Used for policy and education purposes. So, precipitation change scenarios. More rains expected in tropical Pacific, high latitude areas, India, Myanmar. So, that sounds good at first until you realize that could also induce landslides and flooding. So, Less precipitation is predicted for southern Africa. Look at where the world's population is, the majority of people. South Africa makes up quite a bit of it, and you're now expected to live with less water. Mediterranean as well, that's going to get drier. The problem is the Mediterranean is already pretty dry. So that means more wildfires in areas that usually aren't used to them. When you think of Italy, when you think of Greece, you don't think wildfires. When you think of Spain, you don't think wildfires. But in the news, they've been in there a lot more. Australia, obviously, drier climate. It's just going to get drier. It looks like Mexico, which is a major problem for the United States, because when you look at the majority of our produce, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, lettuces, vegetables, está hecha en Mexico. It's made in Mexico. So, all right. Let's take a look here. Critical threshold on climate change. Global temperature rise shown over the last 150 years. Yep. Tipping points could lead to irreversible system shifts. New norms. Tipping cascades. A tipping point in one system can trigger others. Domino effect. Remember how I was talking about how tipping points can be for climate, relationship, and other things? So guess what? If I betray your trust as a student, you're going to be like to your friends and be like, "Sore man, he's that malo. You can't trust that guy. He's a bald-headed snake," you know. So tipping points, you can see how they go across. You know, if I misplace your trust, you know, you're going to talk to your friends, and then it affects right across the board. So, examples: permafrost melting increases greenhouse gases, which increases warming, which increases sea level rising. In Greenland, it's melting. All right, the ice, that is, not the green land it supposedly has. The ice in Greenland. Sea level rise, the Atlantic circulation disruption is increasing from that, from just the desalinization of the water and the temperature. So, TOK, in what ways is factual evidence sometimes used, abused, dismissed, and ignored in politics, economics, and ethics? Okay. Come on now, you got this. So, in what way, like scientific data shows this, data shows that, there's a correlation. No emotion, no politics, raw facts. In what way do politicians and also companies and other people, maybe even including me, in what way do we spin those facts to meet our own agenda and our biased opinion? So, more on inequality and vulnerability to climate change. Countries least responsible for climate change are often the most vulnerable. At COP 27, 2022, countries debated creating a loss and damage fund to support low-income, vulnerable nations. Details still being finalized. Vulnerability includes exposure to climate risk, floods, storms, heat waves, droughts, sea level rise, at-risk populations, government capacity and resources to respond. Examples include Australia faces climate threats but has strong response systems. Others lack this support. High vulnerability hotspots: Africa, South Asia, Central, South America, Small Islands, and the Arctics. I'm going to let this video run for a second because I really want you to focus on this. I also want to see if there's, I thought I remembered a document somewhere that I could look up, see if I can help you out with it. Let's see what I got here. Education. Nope. Nope, I think that's pretty much. That's all, folks. So hopefully you're having an awesome day, and keep rocking. Bye.